Hello, and welcome back to yet another exciting and knowledge packed episode of the Better Divorce podcast. Just in case you don't know who the heck I am, my name is Paulette Rigo, and yes, I'm the CEO and founder of Better Divorce Academy, author of #1 best-selling book, workbook, audiobook, and the upcoming online course, Better Divorce Blueprint, and yours truly, the host of the Better Divorce podcast. I help people avoid court. Yes, avoid court, save all unnecessary legal fees, and typically divorce in less than 90 days. It is possible. Now, I can't control the court, so hold tight, but at least my end of the piece is there. Whether you're looking for private mediation solutions or you have a high conflict spouse, you found the right place. So today I'm going to jump in. Excuse me, everyone. I don't know what's wrong with my voice, but it is not behaving. But we're going to jump into the conversation with a special guest today. Her name is Jennifer Lee, and Jennifer works hand in hand with divorce attorneys and coaches to help clients navigate tough financial decisions. Now, not all decisions are tough with divorce, but when it comes to finances, you found a major problem. And that's why Jennifer's here today. She's also the author of the book, Squeeze the Juice. Don't you love that name? Which offers an approachable look into tackling financial preparedness with ease. And I do like ease. So welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thanks for having me, Paulette. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm always looking for experts in their fields to bring knowledge and skills to people, whether they're contemplating divorce. I thought about it for 10 years. I know the average is about 2 to 3, but I always ask everybody when I find them, how long have you been thinking about this? And 2 to 3 tends to be the average amount of time. But during that period of time, there's a lot of confusion. So tell us a little bit about your story. Why would you want to help people get through that confusion? Did you just wake up one day and say, aha, I want to help people figure out their finances through divorce? Why do you do what you do?
That's a great question. I appreciate that. I absolutely love and am comfortable in the subject of money, and so I've been integrated in that since I was a little kid. I'm 54 at this point, and can remember very early on working with my father and doing things surrounding money. So entrepreneurial in nature. But I find that historically, and it's not exclusively women, but it's a 90% number of female oriented clients that are struggling with the challenges of being overwhelmed when it comes to money. And so because I've got that comfort level, I just want to make it easier, right? They come in and they feel overwhelmed by, I don't know where to start. I don't know what I have. I didn't pay attention. That wasn't my role. We divide and conquer in marriage. I take certain responsibilities, you take certain responsibilities. And if that wasn't your area, it can be a little bit scary. So, my job as an advisor is really to help make it absorbable, right? It's you actually know a lot more than you think you do, because you're in charge of making the household decisions. You're in charge of making the plans for your family's vacation. You're in charge of what the future home is going to be. All of those things in life and the kids' education, you're actually more integrated in the money than maybe you think. And so my job as an advisor is to help you extract out what you need to understand about your money and help you make good decisions so you don't leave money on the table.
Mm. Well, you bring up a good point. When people in a marriage or a relationship choose to what I call divide and conquer. Like, what is that? Paula Cole song, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone? Where she sings, and I'm not going to sing, but I'll do the dishes while you go have a beer. But basically it's like, you mow the lawn and I'll do the dishes. And I'll do the laundry and you mow, whatever the tasks are, So it's an interesting song, but it was one of my favorites way back when. Um, but it's a matter of like taking all of the tasks that have to be done in a relationship, and not both of you don't need to make the bed. Both of you don't need to, we can divide and conquer. Is that a schedule? I don't know. It's going to be different for everybody. But whether that be the money or the housekeeping or, the tasks of just living, right? Money tends to be the one thing that has the most fear associated with it, right? If you don't make the bed, well, I mean, that would make me nuts because I'm an obsessive compulsive bed maker. So I've never not made the bed. Even when I go to a hotel, I make the bed, and I usually shame, not on purpose, the housekeeping, because I always leave the room so clean. They're like, did we just clean this? So, but as far as money, I wasn't that way, when I grew up, and of course there's so many money coaches out there. My God, money coaches, all there, that we we attach fear to money and identification, and we're not good enough. And so I remember my mother saying, well, money doesn't grow on trees. I can still hear her saying it. And my dad worked full time and my mom worked full time, and they both worked, but they both kind of had their own money, right? Like my money and his money, and don't tell your father I'm buying this and that kind of thing. And so like we grow up with all these childhood, Jennifer's smiling if you're listening to the audio, right? So because we grow up with different stories, right, about what money represents
Absolutely.
to us, don't we? And some of them they're not all bad. Don't panic, everyone, but we do. Now you take that baggage with you into your relationship, into your marriage, and they of course have their baggage of what they take into the marriage. And is that congruent? Well, I suggest, if you're listening to this before you get married, it will help a lot. But you're probably not listening to this if you already or you're not married, right? But so it might be too late, but maybe you can teach your children or your grandchildren. It's really important to discuss money before you get married, because everybody has these preconceived ideas about how money should be saved, how money should be spent, how to talk about it. No, 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 no. I don't want to talk about it. Don't look at the tax returns. Do look at the tax returns. Is this something we do together? Is it none of your business? And, all of that stuff is going to set your marriage up for either failure or success. And divorce is that time where you have to address all money issues. It's known as a domestic relations financial affidavit, DERFA for short. And if you can't fill out the DERFA, yeah, it's going to cost you a lot of money, because then your attorney is going to have to fill it out, and then they're going to have to beg, borrow, or steal all the numbers from you to fill in. And it's compliance. And I know I'm getting down a rabbit hole of divorce talk, but she's smiling still. So it's complicated and emotional for many people. And when you feel fear associated with money, what will I do with it? Do I have to pay taxes on it? What's capital gains? Why do I have to pay capital gains? Oh, I hate paying taxes. Or whatever your money story is, and it isn't congruent or overlaps with your spouse, now you're in a clash. So it's very tricky. So what do you see as the main roadblocks with individuals who work with you, who are preparing for divorce? Walk me through that. What do you see the most
So, Paulette, I think that, and usually it's me going down the rabbit hole of
often?
financial terms that make people go, "Oh, I'm now you really stressed me out." I'm worried that when people think about money, that they just stop. It's you know. That they don't address it. So really what you need to start with is, what do you have? Okay. I like to say financial planning is simple. It's not that complicated. I know people chuckle when I say that, but here it is. What do you have? What is your income? What are your assets? What are your resources? Are there bank accounts? Are there retirement accounts? Is there equity in the home? Do you own property? What do you have? Okay. And then over here on the right is, what do you want? right? What do you want in your divorce? Where do you want to live? What do you want to make sure is taken care of for your kids? And my biggest pet peeve when it comes to divorce and this process is, number one, just blindly closing your eyes. You're going to miss something and you're going to leave something on the table. And then number two is divorce fatigue, right? Don't, that's why it takes a team. It takes a village to get through a divorce. You need a coach to hold you to the task, to help you facilitate through these things that overwhelm you. Oftentimes you need a financial person to help you understand what you have. Well, if I keep the house, then I won't have enough cash to do things with my children, and he'll end up taking them on ski vacations, and I'll be stuck in the house and not be able to afford anything extra. We want to understand, I want clients to understand the consequences of the choices they make. It's not my job to tell you to keep the house or not keep the house. It's my job to educate you about what it would mean for you and your family so you can make a thoughtful decision that you can live with.
Yeah. Well, you brought up a beautiful point where you said, when you said, what do you have? Sometimes they don't know.
Yep.
So
Mm-hmm.
then we have to subpoena documents, which costs money, or you better be an FBI, CIA agent, which I was, to dig through trash and look through filing cabinets and make phone calls and try to do as much of that work. I'm not saying to do anything illegal, people, relax. So, but really like put on your radar. Now the problem is most everything is now digital.
It is.
So it's all secretive and password protected, and ideally, if you're there we go again. If you're thinking about divorce, don't tell them, because you need to get your name on everything before you tell them. Because if your name isn't on anything, you don't have access to it. And if
That's
they
right.
won't tell you, then chances are they're keeping secrets. So it's a little tricky. So what do you have? Well, that could be a problem. You might need a forensic accountant, but they're expensive. So what's your ROI on that? Do you want to spend $1,000 to get $10,000? Probably. Do you want to spend $10,000 to get $10,000? Probably, maybe. I don't know. Do you want to spend $10,000 to get $100,000? Most people will say, hell yeah. So you have to look at, what are you spending and what likely would the return be? And is it worth it? Because sometimes that can drag it out a long time. My divorce case was 8.5 years. No joke. Now, the next question you says is, assets, like equity and all that. But then you said, well, what do you want? They don't have a freaking clue.
That is the harder part.
They don't have a clue. And they also don't have what's called realistic expectations and radical acceptance. You have to have realistic expectations about everything, because it's an equitable division of marital assets or common property, community property, depending on what state you live in. So that's research number one. What kind of a state do you live in? And also county dependent and judge dependent too on decision making if you're going to go through litigation. So, some judges hand out alimony like lollipops at the bank, and others say, get a job. So, and many of them fall in the continuum or the gradient between that. So you never know what you're going to get, but you have to have a realistic expectation and a radical acceptance of, well, what is likely to happen in my situation. And it's not just what do you want, but what can you afford? If you can't afford the house, you can't keep it. I'm sorry. Suck it up, deal with it. It's sheetrock. There's another one down the pike. If you don't qualify for the mortgage and the judge awards you the house, you're going to have to sell it. Yep, you are. And that's called radical acceptance. Now, I know that's a jagged little pill to swallow. That's called an Alanis Morissette quote. As you can see, I love music, but it depends on, how old you are and, your education, right? And like, Jennifer said, what are the other assets that you have? And can you Tetris those assets in such a way that you do have income? And as far as a ski trip with the kids, he's going to take them on a ski trip, whether you have the house or not. So, hold tight. Don't worry about what he does with the kids. That's his problem. You just worry about what you're going to do with the kids when they're with you. You cannot control your spouse, and stop trying to. So what are the three key items to know when handling financial portions of a divorce? important to know. You mentioned one, partnering with professionals who can help you strategize, understand, and navigate the financial division of assets. So can you break that down for everybody? What are the professionals that they may need to use? I do in Better Divorce Blueprint talk about different professionals, but I'd much rather it come from you.
Sure. Well, first I want to go back just for a second. You mentioned, hey, a lot of these assets are, they're email oriented. They're two-factor authentication. So if they're IRAs or their bank accounts that your name isn't on, you can't get access to it. And if you try to get access to it, it's going to ping your spouse's cell phone and say, "Here's your code," and
And
that's going to
they're
look
going to be like, what are you doing? Yeah.
right. So some of the things you can do, and they're not foolproof, but one is you can look at tax returns, right? You want to look at tax returns for income and dividends that would come from a brokerage account. Then you know that there is an investment account that generates this type of interest or income. You can also know if there's a bank account that generates income or interest, rather. If you have the full tax return and you have the W-2 of your spouse, then you can see what they're sheltering and putting into a retirement plan. So it's a little bit of clues so that you know at least what to ask for in terms of documents, and you know to be suspicious of some things. So that's certainly important. The forensic accountant, I think that is a decision that is best decided with your attorney as to whether or not you really legitimately need that. It's a question of, what do you know about your spouse and what kind of behaviors they have, and are they really trying to hide things and move money? If that's the case, I want for sure for you to pause on signing a joint tax return. You're going to want to start to file separately. You can file married filing separately to protect yourself from any nefarious activity that well, he or she might, depending on who the nefarious party is, might be doing. Um,
Right.
so those are certainly critical pieces. But I think the main characters in your divorce team are a financial person, a coach and or therapist, and your attorney. And hopefully, depending on how litigious and what the nature of that relationship is, you can go from, hopefully you can do mediation, right? Hopefully you can start with a mediator and solve it there. If not, arbitration, then you get all the way to the messy legal battles.
Well, you mentioned the W-2. W-2 divorces are much easier than self-employed
Oh,
divorces. So if you're both self-employed, it will be more time consuming and
messy.
trickier, unless messy is a good word. Yeah. With your legal team, because of the complexity of your financial situation.
Well, you might need a business evaluation, right?
Right. Business evaluators too. Even if you're self-employed and it's not brick and mortar versus if you are self-employed and it is brick and mortar, that will be the most complicated. And if there's real estate involved, well, you just signed up for the, there we go again. He's going to have to edit that. If you have real estate involved in your divorce, then that will be tricky too, because now you'll not only have to have the business evaluated, you'll also have to have the real estate evaluated, and real estate is tricky. And if you hear K1, you're in for it. So didn't know what a K1 is until I realized, that's interesting. Now, access to tax returns is another issue, right? So, I never looked at the tax returns, wasn't allowed to. So I didn't really, well, let me rephrase that, everyone. I didn't really care to, didn't want to be
Mhm.
bothered. And then when I did bother and want to, they were like 4 inches high with one of those big clips. And I didn't understand them. So when I looked at them, they were overwhelming, and I realized I don't even understand what I'm reading. So I just wanted a line of like, okay, how much money do I make? How much money does he make? And oh, that's nice. Okay. And you
Right.
have to dug through pages and pages of that. And then whether there's income from this investment and this bonus and this dividend and this, I'm not a financial person, but I know enough to get myself in trouble. So you might then, if any of this sounds familiar, then you might need a forensic accountant. But if you're both W-2 employees, don't bother. It's too
Well,
expensive.
if you have a tax return that is yay thick, the first thing I would do is go to a trusted CPA and say, okay, look, um, I want to make sure that I understand where the money is and how it's moving through here, and what really what income we have. I think there's a unless there's a bunch of nefarious activity that you think is sketchy, and he's not telling you everything. Maybe there's cash in the business. Maybe it's a heating and air conditioning business, and sometimes there are cash payments. Whatever, you're going to need a forensic for that, right? You're going to really need to follow the trail of the money. And then how did we end up purchasing this asset? If we only make 100 grand on our tax return, that doesn't really make sense. You need a forensic. But if you just have a complicated tax return, I think there's probably an interim step where you can say, look, I don't understand this. I don't understand what really is affecting our family, and what kind of money we are taking in and using with the K1 and the earnings inside of a business, and you can have negotiating power, right? Especially if you're going through mediation, you're then armed with information to be better prepared to advocate for yourself.
Right. No doubt. One of the things I see, Jennifer, is uh, typically when women in coaching early in the situation, where I have to teach them. Well, they want me to teach them, not like I have to teach them. They're like, teach me, please. Why isn't there a course junior year in high school on marriage? And that marriage is a legal binding contract, and how marriage works. And if it ever, for whatever reason, doesn't last, not that we ever want to go into a marriage thinking that it won't, but wouldn't it be smart of these young, romanticized, hearts and souls to know what they're getting into before they do it? Maybe it's college, but I think it's high school. But they have this romantic notion that we're going to have a white dress and a tuxedo and a pretty cake and this lovely wedding. And then everything's going to be great. And we're going to have 2.3 kids in a house with a picket fence and a dog and a cat. And, everything's going to, and that's what we want. Well, society wants that, or it used to anyway. That's a whole other conversation. Jennifer's laughing. But now it's like, okay, what are you getting into, right? So is it a marital asset? Is it a non-marital asset? Is it a premarital asset? Because that has a lot of confusion. And then once I teach the different buckets of divorce, legal custody, physical custody, child support, an equitable division of marital assets, an equitable division of marital debt in some situations, and spousal support, which used to be called alimony maintenance, call it what you will. I don't know. I think they wanted it to be matchy, child support, spousal support, and it's different in each area of the country. So, but a lot of people think that's the same bucket, that the division of assets, the finances with that, and that the alimony is part of that. And it's not, it's a separate entity. So if you're listening, I hope, and you know that, great, awesome, Divorce 101, good job, proud of you. But if you don't, see them as different containers. And is this a situation where your divorce is a case for alimony? Does it have need and ability to pay? What is the length of the marriage? And the other, I hate to use the word criteria, but ideas around why you would have a strong argument for it being a case for alimony, or is it not, right? Short-term marriage, both have a great resume, great income, nobody is ill, probably not. And an equitable division of marital assets has nothing to do with child support, It has nothing to do with spousal support. It's just like Jennifer said, what do you have? That's it. What do you have? And how are we divvying it up? Is it 50-50? Is it 49-51? Is it 90-10? No judgment. And that really has a lot to do with the I'm going to use the word contribution, but that I don't want to get into any, legal terms there. But like, what is the basis of that split? How would that be divided? Attorney A is saying, well, Your Honor, for the following reasons, my client should be entitled to blank. And then the other one, but Your Honor, for the following reasons, my client should be entitled to blank. And they're arm wrestling as to what's that division, right? And that's where things can get a little bit less equitable. So depending on your situation. But you share about not leaving money on the table, right?
Yeah.
And I also explain to people that if you are a case for alimony, that there's criteria that you follow, right? Death, cohabitation for more than 90 days, remarriage, criteria there. So you have to really think wisely with that. But do you want to buy out? Would you rather have a lump sum instead if it is in fact a case for alimony? If it isn't, then, why are we wasting our time talking about it? So it's complex. And this is why you need a financial person to kind of break down that. So if you get this amount of alimony, then this is the propensity or, percentage in which you would be financially stable. If you receive this, then this, like a pie chart, right? Of kind of,
Well,
I love
exactly.
graphics.
Yeah, exactly. And also to understand, okay, if there's this equitable division and I get 40 or 48% of the assets, what are those assets? Are they retirement assets? And I'm only 45 years old, and so I can't. I mean, there are situations where you can distribute money, but you don't necessarily want to have to take it from retirement assets because there's taxes involved. So, are those monies that I'm going to put aside for my future, and there's only $100,000 of taxable money and cash that I can have today? Well, I use the analogy of a machine, right? Your money, we're look at it like it's a machine. So if we have $1 million machine and we invest it for you, and the market's going to go up and down and everybody's risk tolerance is different, but for argument's sake, if we can anticipate that you can consistently, with a high degree of likelihood, take 5%, you can get 50 grand off of that asset. Okay, that might not be enough, and that might not seem like a lot, but in a 2024 where the market performed and your account, which we're planning on 5% coming out, did 12%, that's a year we might put a little bit extra on the side for a trip that you might be doing in the future or for some other thing related to the house. But you don't want to dismantle your machine, right?
Mhm.
You only want to take what it can generate for
Yeah, you
you,
can't leech off of it and then say, where's all my money? I
because
need
then you'll be
more.
out. Then you will have no money.
You don't go back to court and say, Your Honor, I spent it all. I want more.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
No, there would be a very long line at the courthouse.
Yeah. And so
So,
if you have some alimony, and maybe it's for 5 years or 7 years, you got to plan that out. Okay, I'm going to have this covered for 5 or 7 years. I'm going to let this investment money grow so I can then generate income in that 5 to 7 years. All the while, maybe you're, reacclimating yourself back to the workforce. You're becoming a yoga guru. You're coaching people, whatever it is, you're developing your future. And that's part of what do you want. And that's going to take time.
it does. It does take a long time. There are those three categories of people, right? Thinking about it, getting through it, managing it, or now what, right? I'm done.
Yeah.
And the now what tends to be, um, uh, let's say, counterintuitive of, oh, I thought I had the piece of paper in my hand and I would have, a final plan put together for that. And financial plan is key. I usually recommend working with a certified divorce financial analyst too. If you have, the need or confusion, or you don't have a CPA or a financial planner that you have formed a relationship with, divorce is the time to develop a strong relationship with a financial planner. But I do caution that you find a financial expert that has congruent visions for you. If their vision is put it all on the stock market and you're like, no, I don't want to lose a penny. I don't care if I make money. I don't want to hear about inflation. Don't tell me, or or the opposite, don't put it in the stock market, whatever. I'm being extremist here, but you've got to
Yeah.
find somebody that really and tells it like it is, and is very clear with you about tax ramifications and all of those other things. So you've got to have a strong bond with this person, just as much as you do with an attorney. Once you
Maybe more, because
yeah.
your relationship with your attorney is only as long as your divorce, right?
Mhm.
The hope is, and the plan is that your relationship with the advisor is potentially lifetime, right?
That's the plan if you have it. Yep.
Yeah, I like to say that, some of the work that I do is financial therapist, right? So it's educating you about your money, and it's understanding what's important to you, because my job is not to shove you in a box that may or may not fit. My job is to understand how we can leverage your resources to benefit your life the way that you want it. And that's going to change over time. It's not like we set a course and that's it, that's all. It's we set a course and 6 months from now, you know what? I'm going to do this. And you know what? I decided I'm thinking about selling my house. Should I do that? What's that going to look like? It's a conversation, it's a strategy, and then it's implementing an adjusted plan.
Mm.
Right.
And you make a beautiful point, Jennifer. You're not going to be the same person after your divorce as you were at the beginning. You'll hopefully be a stronger, more intelligent, wiser, more resilient, with more courage and a much stronger self-awareness. A divorce is a study in self-study. It really teaches you, or should teach you, about every little aspect of your life. So you get the psychological, mental, emotional part of yourself. And dare I say the spiritual side too, but also the legal, financial, residential, lending, insurance, and taxes side. So
Yeah.
you've got to be practical, but you've also got to connect to what is it you really want. In chapter 1 of my book, I list the 230 core values, and I have my clients choose their top 25. They're in
Mhm.
alphabetical order from acceptance to wisdom. I don't know why there's no X, Y, and Z, but there aren't. And then you have to then zero in or narrow down the 25 to 6. And that I have them put on a piece of paper, and they carries them with them throughout their divorce. And every decision they make has to be in alignment with those core values. But I challenge you, those core values might change or shift as you grow into your new, better version of yourself, the one that can start to peel away the pain and the trauma and the old version of you that didn't
Doesn't
feel
serve you
right.
anymore.
There's a great saying in yoga: take from the mat what serves you and leave behind what does not. And the divorce is the same. Take from the divorce what serves you and leave behind what does not. You have a responsibility to plan your future. It's essential. No one's going to do it for you. I mean that. No one. So what do you give your top tips to people who are contemplating divorce and really in the midst of it as far as their finances? What do you tell them to do now to plan?
Well, the first thing to do is to get your ducks in a row, gather what you can, so we can have an educated discussion about it. We want to understand how long you've been married, the assets that you've accumulated, whether there's a business. Gosh, please don't. If your spouse developed a business during your marriage, you've been married 30 years, now the business is fantastic. It supported your family all this time. Please understand that's half yours. Please don't think, oh, well, he worked the business, I took care. No, no, no. It's a marital asset. let's get your equitable piece of that, because you enabled him to be able to develop that business and grow that and so on. Um, so the advice I say is the lowest hanging fruit, I guess, is really just try not to be scared, right? Find a partner who can educate you, help you understand the consequences of the choices you make from a financial perspective. Choice is yours. Um, don't leave money on the table. Um, and um, and if you get alimony, child support, those kind of things that are over time, make sure you have some life insurance on that person, because if they die on day 2 of your divorce, guess what? You don't have any alimony, you don't have any child support, gone. So, I mean, that's a thing your attorney should kind of share with you, but not everybody does. So,
Very true. Um, Alimony is not just how much, but how long,
yeah.
right? So it's like X amount for X amount of time, right? And I'm not seeing it lifetime anymore.
It's funny. I've got this client who has um, $50,000 of alimony for lifetime, and
Mm,
she's in a serious relationship
mm.
and would love to get married. And I say, is it worth $1 million to you? Because that 50 grand is $1 million asset that's kicking that off.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard.
I
Um,
gave up alimony and got remarried. It was worth
yep.
every penny. My peace of mind, my heart, my soul said, I don't want it. It's blood money. I'm done. So, but
Good for
that's not
you.
advice. That's just my personal journey. So,
Right. Right.
it's called integrity. So you just have to, do what is right for you. I have a dear friend whose husband has passed, and she collects his Social Security as she's
Mhm.
entitled to, and
Sure.
she doesn't want to get married because she'll lose that.
Mm.
Now that doesn't
Well,
have anything to do with marriage, but I mean,
it,
divorce.
it, but it also depends on what their financial
Oh,
situation is.
amen. Yeah, you're saying it.
They might not be able to afford it,
Shouldn't.
right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm not
So,
advocating she should or shouldn't, but I'm giving you another example of like
yeah,
there's a lot to consider.
there's a lot out there. I'm right there with you. I
Yeah,
understand.
I know. Well, I love these conversations about money, and you can see like you've got to be real about this. And if you're uncomfortable about talking and being real, then divorce will be challenging for you. Now, I'm not saying you need to be real and authentic and truthful with the world. It's a private conversation that you should have with a trusted, knowledgeable expert advisor like Jennifer. Don't this isn't a conversation you have at the clerk at the grocery store. It's a conversation that you have with a trusted advisor. Naturally, we're on a podcast, we're having a candid, open conversation about things to consider, but know that this is sacred space, I like to call it. My yoga studio or my yoga school used to be called Sacred Space Yoga School, so I do carry that name with me to all of my yogis listening. So, and to all of my divorce clients, I love you. Keep trugging along. I would have called it Best Divorce Academy, but I had to struggle with better. So until next time, you know how to find me. But Jennifer, what is the best way for people to continue to learn more about you, contact you, follow you, and potentially work with you?
Sure. Thank you, Paulette. I've got a website called squeezethejuicebook.com, and it highlights the book that I wrote, which is really more about taking care of your family and organizing yourself from a financial perspective. And it's written for the ostrich or the non-moneyed party. So maybe your listeners are like, oh, I don't know enough. I promise you will. It's an easy read. And when you do read it, you'll be better equipped to ask questions of yourself, and then be better equipped for a conversation with a financial person. And it honestly, it doesn't hurt. Um, I wrote it with my mom in mind because she's that non-moneyed party as well. So there's that. And then I like to offer, when we do these kind of podcasts, there's always some question we didn't answer that was specific to a listener. So if there is a burning question you have, you're welcome to hit me up on Calendly for a squeeze the juice call, just a 15-minute, no cost, no obligation. But if we can answer your burning question, happy to do that.
And even though Modern Wealth is a firm in Sarasota, you can work with clients all over the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just
Absolutely.
confirming.
We have clients all over the country for
Good,
sure.
just like myself too. So people's like, "Oh, you're in Atlanta. I can't work from you." I work with you. I'm like, that's not true. So all over the country and beyond, mediation and coaching. Well, thank you for this conversation. And as you know, everybody, you got to do this wisely. You got one shot at this. No regrets. Do it wisely. No mistakes. No regrets. Do it well, and do it with dignity and grace and wisdom. Until next time, I'll see you around the block.